You're listening to Straight Talk with Kim and Carolyn.
We're being joined now by Representative Candice Pierucci, who is running the Hope Scholarship Bill this year. We'd love to hear a little bit about what the bill does and kind of what you're hearing from constituents and your colleagues in the legislature, Representative.
Because we're not hearing anything about it at all yet.
Yeah, no one is. And let me just say, it's kind of one of these bills that has remained
just
hidden.
Quiet,
a little
secret.
bit, few whispers. But I will say, Representative Pierucci, so we have, I think you know, our producer, Fosmu. He tells us that he's your constituent. He tells us you're doing good work. I think what he said specifically was she's awesome.
Rock star?
Yeah, something like that. Maybe both of those. But anyway, so Representative, tell us about the bill.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on your show. So if anything, the past couple of years have highlighted that a one-size-fits-all approach does not work for every child. I think that's been abundantly clear. And we've seen a huge shift nationally and statewide in the public's opinion on how they feel about a educational savings account and opportunities for kids outside of the public education system. Specifically, a Dan Jones poll actually highlighted that 69% of Utahns would actually like to see their state dollars, their tax dollars, follow a child's education path. So with this in mind, this bill is pretty straightforward. It actually would allow parents to apply for a scholarship that would empower them to really customize their child's education. And so it would be means tested on income. So individuals who are in a low income bracket or say make less than $55,000 for a family of four, they would be able to qualify for a much higher amount of a scholarship than say someone who is making $100,000. But the idea is that with that scholarship money, they would be empowered to be able to put that towards micro schools, homeschool pods, tutoring, additional services for their child, private school tuition, and really try and give that flexibility to parents.
Well, what about a combination of those?
So you could, I mean, in the bill, I think a lot of people were anticipating will use it for more of a hybrid with a homeschool, micro school pod. So you could hire a tutoring service. You could hire a teacher, like a science teacher, to teach your neighborhood of kids in a homeschool pod. You could get it for additional curriculum. So like I said, it'd go through a scholarship granting organization that would review that. But I think it's a fantastic opportunity for parents to be able to have additional tools outside of what we traditionally think of public school.
Yeah. So tell us kind of how things are going in the legislature. What are you hearing from your colleagues? And have there been any changes in the bill since it was released? Give us a little bit of background on that and behind the scenes on that.
So right now I'm working on chatting with my colleagues about the policy. It's a big policy change. And it actually, I think, we're seeing this nationwide, but it really is a conservative policy of believing in free market principles across the board and allowing that to have benefits in our education system. So right now, like I said, I'm chatting with colleagues about it. The majority of them are supportive of it as we talk about it. And quite frankly, and I hate to say this to encourage negative emails, but I have only gotten one email about this bill that's negative. A lot of people are really positive about this bill. And I think that just goes to show that parents are ready for a change and they're open to this concept. Obviously, the UEA opposes this, but I anticipated that. and no surprise there. But I will say it is helpful for your listeners and people who do support this idea of empowering parents with school choice options to really reach out to their representative and their senator, because this will be an uphill battle as we work to get support for it. And quite frankly, It's a much more holistic approach to doing education. We get so siloed into thinking we have to just focus on public education. That's our only option. But I think the best approach is giving parents lots of choices to let them make that decision for what's best for their kid. And that's what we're going to have to show, is that parents really do want this opportunity and that it can work.
Okay, so one of the prevailing oppositional arguments right now is this is vouchers. And so let me ask you first, how old were you, or what grade level were you in when the voucher bill was passed and defeated
Years ago.
14 years ago? So 15 years ago.
So I was 14. I was 14 years old, and I actually remember it because I was in PTSA in middle school. And I remember visiting up at the Capitol, and my teacher actually told me, and I won't share her name, but I remember her. She pointed out my representative and said, he is evil because he voted for vouchers.
Wow.
For vouchers. And I remember thinking, like that seems off. But at 14, I was very aware of the concept because my teacher was sharing her opinion on it. But I will say, a lot of people are comparing this to that bill, and I think, one, the environment, the public, there's so much that's changed, and two, the bill is different. So a voucher bill is when the state gives direct public funds, direct state dollars to a private school for tuition. What this bill is doing is it mirrors the educational saving account, which 27 other states are considering similar legislation this year. And the idea is that, similar to an HSA, a parent, once they're granted the scholarship, could go onto an online portal and look at approved service providers and an approved list of expenses that they could spend it on. And then they're able to direct the money that way. So it isn't just this direct only to private schools. And like I said, we anticipate the majority of people who do this will be for micro schools and homeschool pods. So that's a big difference. COVID-19 happened. Little footnote there, where people, I think parents more than ever, are engaged in their kids' education. Everyone really had to jump into that with a lot of the online learning that occurred. And I think parents realized they wanted to be able to customize more of it. And the third thing I'll mention is, I'm a millennial. I am the age group of parents with young kids now. We're dominant force in the workforce, and we can customize everything, right? To your apps on your phone,
You can
to
do
your
hard things.
menus, to everything. And we expect the ability to be able to customize the most important things for our kids, which is their education. So I really do think there's an increased appetite from parents to be more involved in their kids' choices for school.
Yeah, and I think that appetite is across the board. I heard a comment the other day that a member of the legislature who opposes this actually said that they didn't think that poor people would know how to adequately navigate the system to do what they needed to do for their children, so they would be left behind in this. I don't think, as conservatives, that's how we view our fellow citizens. And I assume that every one of us, from Representative Pierucci to Kim, to me, that each one of us trusts every parent out there to do what they think is best for their children and to navigate the system any way that they need to find what they need to for that child, which is going to be different for every child and different for every family.
Well, what do you want people to know about the scholarship?
So I'd love for them to actually check out the bill if they're interested. You can check edopportunityutah.org. Really, if you are supportive of this, if it's something that you think would be helpful for your kid, please reach out via email, text, phone call to your legislator. I think that's important. There's also something I want to make clear that I think is a really big difference compared to 14 years ago, and that is the passage of Amendment G that we saw last year, which guaranteed funding and growth for public education. And so, unlike previous school choice type efforts that we've had, this bill isn't pulling from the public education budget. It will be out of the income tax revenue as a separate line item appropriation. But I think it's really important. And for people who are opposing this bill, they're mixing that message. And I don't think it's fair to the public. I think we should be honest about that. And I do want to say, right down to the detail of, if a child leaves in the middle of an academic school year, that WPU that was allocated to a public school will stay there through the end of the academic year because they had budgeted accordingly. So we're really trying to be thoughtful about this process. Would love to hear your feedback, your stories. I've had parents reaching out who have shared their experiences on how this would help. Also, I'll point out, I am a product of the public education system. I love Jordan School District, grew up in this area, and it worked. I thrived in that environment. I loved my teachers, and it really was a good experience. And I have siblings who I think really could have benefited from this option. We are not all the same. We all have different needs and different interests, and I think in 2022, it shouldn't be that hard to allow a parent more autonomy and more options using their tax dollars for their kids' education.
Well, while we have you, I think the thing we all need to know, or we all really want to know the answer to this, if you could just kind of clarify this once and for all. Is this Hope Scholarship an effort to funnel money to global elitist communists, and is this a way for government to take over your homeschool and start coming into your living room to look at what you're doing with your kids? Because, well, there's an agenda there. Does this bill do those two things?
What a question.
No, actual comments, by the way, Representative, actual comments.
No, I know. I've heard some of them. So I will point out that the bill actually has language to address the concern of homeschool families and of private schools that, we're not going, it explicitly outlines that accepting this funds does not mean you now are going to be doing standardized tests. It does not mean that now we're going to come in and control homeschool curriculum. We're not changing anything. And that is something I have defended and held the line on, and it's clear in the bill on that front. This bill truly is about empowering parents. And I think, again, we believe in free market principles as conservatives everywhere else, but for whatever reason, we're not connecting it on education, which is the most important, I would argue, one of the most important experiences of a kid's life, and can set them on the right track. So no, there is no ulterior agenda on this. And like I said, there's language in the bill to make sure that by accepting these funds that, it doesn't drive the curriculum. I will say, too, there's no reason someone has to accept these funds if they're worried about it. But there are so many people who are eager to apply for these, and I think it's worth giving it a shot. I think it's a very measured approach, and it's a $36 million appropriation. And anyways, I'm really eager to see how this goes and to get this into a committee.
That's great.
So as we wrap this up, one more quick question. You talk about the $36 million appropriation. How much does the state of Utah spend out of our own funds on K-12 education each year? Oh, no.
You are totally testing me on this.
I know it.
Okay.
It's about $6 billion plus.
So what?
$6 billion.
Thank you. I was about to say major brain fart at the end of the day. So this would be like 1% of a WPU. That's the amount. I mean, we do pilot programs all the time for innovative practices, and I think you could look at that way. But thank you, Kim, for jumping in there. I have, like I said, been running through numbers today. But yeah, it really is a very modest fund for this program, but it has the potential to do so much good.
Yeah, yeah. And as mothers, I think all of us know, especially those of us who've had kids through the years, right? I have 5 who are, my oldest is 28 and my youngest is 13. We've done a variety of different things. We spent a decade in private school. I have a child who that wasn't the answer for him, the private school that worked for a couple of his brothers, and public school was. And so I do think that we need to be aware, and I think most of us mothers are. Kids are different, people are different, and we need to give that kind of decision-making power to the parents.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
Utah is not the leader, by the way,
Yeah.
on these ESAs, these education scholarship programs. We have a brand new tax credit scholarship program as well. That's much, much smaller than the one that's being proposed. But, yeah, we're not the leader. So other states have gone there before us. Some have been in this particular kind of ed choice world for over 15 years. Florida has an extremely robust scholarship system that almost every student in the state qualifies for one of their many scholarships. And the Hope Scholarship, Florida, one of Florida's really awesome scholarships is also named the Hope Scholarship for what it does. And so, a lot of territory has already been plowed. This has been tested. And one of the great things is that for most states where this has been done, the state has seen a savings, and that means that's money that stays in that traditional public education system.
Right.
And frequently it's outliers in a given cohort of students that are seeking something different. And so Arizona is experiencing a really large return on that public investment, so to speak, to use a market phrase, but that it's more than it's more than a 4-to-1 savings on just on the education hard cost. But when they factor in things like capital facilities costs, like buildings, they're estimating somewhere like an 11-to-1 savings. So this really by no means is a hit on the traditional public system, and so there really are real numbers to show that it doesn't harm that system. But having those opportunities is really what we can't always measure.
Yes.
And that success of a student, or that whatever way that student is now thriving or succeeding better, which is not always on a test.
That's right. It is not always reflected in the way that we traditionally measure the success of a student or the success of a school. And we need to understand that. Right?
Or why a parent might make that.
That's right.
Why they might make that choice. And so, I founded a charter school 15 years ago, right about the time the voucher thing went down. and I...
When Representative Perucci was 14.
Was 14.
Yes.
And a teacher was not indoctrinating her and biasing on legislation. So, because that never happens.
It's amazing I turned out conservative, right?
So, but I remember having, creating a charter school and being able to do that, and having the whole range of things that we could do. And we wanted a school that honored our founding and honored, the great things about our country. And then it was college prep, and it was academically rigorous. And we had all these kids that would come, and we had waiting lists, and we had test scores that were amazing. And then we started asking parents, so why did you choose this? And the most common answer was, do you know why? Why parents? Most parents chose our
feeling.
school.
I want to know what they said.
Uniforms.
You're kidding me.
Uniforms.
Yeah.
What?
But we have this great curriculum. Uniforms. But we do this awesome thing, and we offer Chinese.
They've also
Uniform.
found that nationally, some of the top reasons parents pull their kids out is for bullying issues. They found that this is a great opportunity to get kids a fresh start. And to your point, parents want more rigorous curriculum and want to be able to meet their kids' needs. So I think you bring up great points. And I would say West Virginia has a program like this that we're looking at. To your point, there are many states who have done this, so it's not like we're out on the bleeding cutting edge of this. This really is a tried and true school choice program, and I think it could do really great things for Utah's education system. Yeah. And I will say parents are already trying to have free market principles within the current system. I don't know if you saw that Salt Lake City School District is going to have to lay off 42 teachers, I believe, because enrollment has plummeted. I know that a lot of students who are in that school district are coming into my district for school. I've had even drafting attorneys reach out and say, hey, I drive my kid into your district every day because I just couldn't take it anymore. I didn't, the approach of the school district through COVID. So people are trying to find choices even within the current system. And that's why I think this will be so effective and popular.
And that the fact that you have, it recognizes the full range of choices. And we don't, like, I was surprised to hear people cared about uniforms more than the academic performance, and that we leave that to parents and why they make their choices. And it's not always about the academics. It's not always about, the school stuff. Sometimes it is environment. Sometimes it is fresh start, which is what the Hope Scholarship in Florida is. It focuses a lot on mental health of children, and if they're being bullied, they get a way out and a fresh start.
We are going to close this out thanking Representative Pierucci for the work that she's doing on it. This is not an easy undertaking, but we appreciate what you're doing. And I'm going to make one last comment that's based on your comment, Kim, a moment ago, and that is, I have a son who says he will never be able to wear a polo shirt again because of all those years of private school, and he's a hippie now. So you never know what will totally backfire on
Same thing.
you.
My kids hate polos now, forever and ever, and khaki pants, and khaki pants.
Well, just a sec. We now have a nose piercing and a tattoo, so whatever. I do think it all came from the polo shirt, but I think there's good that can come out of this regardless. He's brilliant and had a great education. So, all right. Thank you for joining us, Representative Pierucci.
Thank you for having me, ladies. We'll talk to you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for joining us again for this episode of Straight Talk with Kim and Carolyn. That was a fantastic episode that we just had. We want to thank our producer, Fosmu.
You're welcome.
And please follow us, find us on Facebook, on our platforms, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Please give us a like, a follow, and a share. That's very important. If you like what you're hearing, like what you're seeing, please share with your friends so we can help grow our audience and get our message out. And thanks again for being with us tonight.
Thanks.